And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce the winner of this year's BMES Diversity Award, Manu Platt. The BMES Diversity Award honors an individual project, organization, or institution for outstanding contributions to improving gender and racial diversity in biomedical engineering. The award seeks to recognize lifetime achievements as well as innovative and/or high-impact activities where they are warranted. As I'm sure many of you know, Dr. Platt has been a fierce advocate and innovator regarding diversity at our universities and beyond. Dr. Platt earned his bachelor's in biology from Morehouse College in 2001, and then his PhD from Georgia Tech Emory, the joint program in biomedical engineering, in 2006. He went for postdoctoral training at MIT and then returned to Georgia Tech Emory in January 2009 to start his independent tenure track career. Dr. Platt's research focuses on proteolytic mechanisms of tissue remodeling using experimental and computational approaches. Dr. Platt, with Bob Neerum, co-founded and co-directs Project Engages, engaging the next generation at Georgia Tech in engineering and science, a program for African American high school students in the Atlanta public school system that are trained and paid well above minimum wage to be researchers in Georgia Tech labs. Dr. Platt was named an emerging scholar by Diverse, Issues in Higher Education magazine in 2015, and chosen for Atlanta 40 under 40. He's still under 40, by the Atlantic Business Chronicle in 2016. For his activities at Georgia Tech and his outreach activities in the broader Atlanta community. Please welcome Manu Platt. I'm going to go down and I'll come back.
Oh, no. For those that know me, I laugh a lot. It takes me a while to just calibrate. I am deeply honored. I'm humbled. I'm really appreciative of being here and being selected for this award this year. I've been a part of BMES clearly since the beginning of my graduate work at Georgia Tech Emory with Hanjung Jo. And I do want to make sure I thank Guillermo and Deborah, who are the co-chairs of the committee, for selecting me, and also to Bob Neerum and Monty Reichert, who were the ones who nominated me for the award. So I appreciate them. I also have to thank all of the students that have worked with me over the years. They have helped me get all of this work done. They are the reasons that we do the work, and they're the ones that kind of make it all worthwhile. So I want to thank them. Many of them are in the audience, and here we go. So again, I'll see you all in Atlanta next year, hopefully all of you plus 3 of your friends. Each of you bring 3 friends. I bring you greetings from the Georgia Tech Emory Joint Department of Biomedical Engineer. I was in the 2nd class of that program. And what made it so phenomenal, I think it actually was founded with diversity in mind. It was at a time when they wanted to bring life scientists, people with life science degrees like biology, and have them work with people who had mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and chemical engineering, and throw us all together and see what kind of work could we accomplish. And we actually had an anthropologist on the faculty who was evaluating us and watching us, like Jane Goodall in all those moments. So I think it was a successful model. So I want to talk about this outline. The title is The Danger of Acting Now. I mean, I talked with some of my friends about how to title it, and some people, why don't you put the importance of it? But I like the whole idea about the danger, because there are things that we do that we should do because they're right, and people may tell us not to do them, and there may be consequences, but we should still do them in full awareness of that. So I thought danger was the more appropriate title. And so just a quick outline, I'll talk first about now, a few different ways of thinking about now. So starting with the state of things today, but I'm gonna talk to you about it according to my lived experience. It may not be your lived experience, you may have different takes on it. All I can talk about is my lived experience, okay? Then there's the now with a question mark, which, now? And I'm really excited to be chosen because young people shouldn't wait until later, right? Why wait until everything is safe? I've got my house, my car, you know, I'm well established, NIH calls me to give me money. Why wait until that point to start having impact, right? So now, and there's fear of doing it now. So I'm talking to the students and early career professionals in that regard. Then there's now ellipsis, right? Now. Ugh. There are practical tips that we can do, all of us can do to make change. And so I hope to address some of that, because I hope you, as scholars and teachers, want you all to learn something and walk away with that. And then there's the now with the exclamation point to talk about power. So the people in positions of power, there are things that you all can do this afternoon that can make things better, all right? And so I'll be talking to some of those allied power players. So, you might be wondering, why did they choose him? And probably somebody's thinking, because he's black, right? That's okay. I know I'm black. I do, right? If you feel comfortable calling me African American, you can. That's a little bit too many syllables for me, so I don't do that. But I know that I'm black, and it's okay if you know that I'm black, right? The colorblind, I don't see color. I'm proud to be black. You can do that. And that's important because I am not different from other black people. I have a black family, I have a black father, I have a black mother, I have a black stepmother, I have black brothers, my grandparents are black, hypertension, high cholesterol, diabetes, fibroid tumors, colon cancer, these are all health concerns of my family. But I have family members that are HIV positive, I have family members that have been arrested, I have family members that are incarcerated right now, that are victims of child abuse and molestation, that are addicted to drugs, and I have many family members with bad credit. Okay? But in my family, we also have union leaders, civil rights activists, veterans, professors, network security experts, waiters, psychological counselors, and I have a ton of teachers in my family. That's me, and they are all black also. But yes, I am black, but at the same time, I've been harassed by the police. I've had the Georgia Tech police pull me over at 11:30 at night and have 2 or 3 squad cars come up to talk to me, where I fumbled quickly to try to turn the video on my phone on, just in case I didn't make it, but there would be a story to continue. And I live a black life, and I live in this black body, and I'm aware of that. And I move in spaces where black bodies are not common. So we know the statistics, or if you don't, I'll give you a quick primer. About 2% of professors in STEM are African Americans, and that's me reaching to say that. I sit on the study section for NIH. There's about 20 to 25 people that show up when we do our reviews. I'm the one black person in that room with these 20, 25 other people. And we're making decisions that are million-dollar decisions that will affect careers, labs, local economies. And I'm one black person in that room. Every third cycle, there's another one. So Princess was just there, so I was glad to have someone else in the room for that cycle. I rotate off in about 3 months, or not 3 months, in about 6 months. So we'll see what happens in that committee after that. My department, very diverse department for biomedical engineers, right? We pride ourselves on that, but there's 2 1/4 of the faculty in my department are black. I say 1/4 because one person is 25% assigned to BME, 75% ME. It's a whole person, but just split up differently. And I cannot tell you how many weddings I go to where I am the only black person there. And that's, of course, especially if the +1 that I bring is not black, okay? And because these are good friends of mine, I then go up to them and say, so am I your only black friend? To which some ask that question. But I wanted to say, my black life matters, I feel. My black body matters. But it's interesting, as a nerd and a scientist, I'm told my black body is a weapon. And I'm told by people that they feel threatened by me with this big black body. And I think that surprises me. I got this big smile, right? Big smile, but even with me, and I think with this height and with this hair, those things don't help. Because black bodies are threatening, and they should be controlled to keep everyone safe. And so here I am, my group. We've been fighting health disparities in science since 2009. I think that's another reason I've been here. And there's a whole number of other host reasons why I think BMES would have me up here, as Dr. Seton presented in the introduction. So I appreciate that. I do a number of things with the society. I love the society. I love what we mean. I love that we are the diverse science society because we bring in all of these different fields together, and I think that makes us powerful. But when I think about what's happening now, right, and I get back to this control of black bodies, and I think that's relevant for biomedical engineers because we work with health professions. We are trying to fix bodies. We work with bodies nonstop, so we should talk about these things. But in this control of black bodies, Colin Kaepernick comes to mind. Football, as we know, great traumatic brain injury specialists here know the damage that happens with football, right? We have contributed to lots of that field of knowledge, but they want these black bodies still to go out there, crash, throw themselves into each other, and to do all of these things for our enjoyment, which they make choices, they're adults, yes? But now the different level of control comes, why are you kneeling? Stand your black body up when we tell you to. But we forget the original reason why he's doing this. It was about police brutality. Despite whatever you may hear now, it was about police brutality. This statistic shows us that black people, unarmed black people, are killed by the police at 5 times the rate of unarmed white people. 5 times the rate, and we make up 13% of the population. If we were 5 times the population, maybe we could normalize the numbers and have it equal per capita, right? Because engineers play with numbers. This was his issue, right? And this was on top of all of the other unarmed black children, men and women that were killed by police. Now, to be true, Trayvon Martin and Jordan Davis, the first two there, were not killed by police. One was killed by someone who wanted to be a police officer, and the other one was just killed by a citizen. But instead of thinking about these as unarmed black children, men and women, how about we think about them as unarmed black sons, daughters, fathers, cousins, killed by police? I would know people like this, right? But I don't live in Florida. Or just unarmed Americans killed by police. And these numbers that I have on here, these are the ages of these people when they were struck down, right? And the one that really gets me still to this day when I think about it is Tamir Rice, who was 12 years old. I'll show you later a picture of my brothers. My youngest brother was 12 years old at the time that Tamir was shot down, right? These are people that we know, and these are things that we wear and take with us when we walk and navigate the world. But now look at this. If we look at that, out of that select group, the unarmed Americans killed by police, this is the number whose killers were convicted out of all of those. So the other people, they died and no one was at fault. And for Jordan Davis's killer, Michael Dunn, he was only convicted of killing Jordan Davis at the second trial. It was a hung jury the first trial. He was convicted of reckless endangerment because his 2 friends who lived had had bullets shot at them. That's what they convicted him of. But Jordan Davis, his murder was not a conviction until the second trial. To be black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. James Baldwin said this in the 50s, and I came across this over the last 2 years, and it's an interesting, very powerful quote. But you look at this picture and he's smiling. So how is he feeling rage and he looks happy? Well, let's look at some pictures of me through my life and times. This is me finishing grad school with the wonderful and great Dr. Hunching Joe, Board of Directors, BMES. I'm smiling there. Smiling there is one of some friends of mine from my postdoc experience, more friends at the end of my postdoc. And you also see other patterns, I think, in these pictures as well, but I'm still smiling. Sometimes the shadows don't let you see anything but my smile. And this is one of my first lab group meetings. And several other pictures you see me with wonderful people, and I'm smiling. I am happy to be here. I'm happy to be in biomedical engineering, I'm happy to be a professor at Georgia Tech, and I'm extremely happy to be speaking in front of you. But I cannot forget what else is happening when I walk off this stage or when I walk home to the hotel or when I go back to Atlanta. Because I live in this black body and these things are always happening for me. Bayard Rustin says this, so when people get upset about Colin Kaepernick, I think about Bayard Rustin, right? Bayard Rustin was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s right-hand man. He was an out black gay man back in the 60s in the civil rights movement, and some of King's enemies did try to use that against him, but Bayard did not care. You should read his biography, it's amazing. But look at this, if you think about this in Colin Kaepernick's space. When an individual is protesting society's refusal to acknowledge his dignity as a human being, his very act of protest confers dignity on him. And that's why Colin, he's not playing. So when I talk about the danger of acting now, it's dangerous. He lost his job. He took a stand, he's not playing, right? But he is still holding his dignity and still maintaining his conversation. So where does that come to play with me? My name is Manu Platt. My name is actually Ghanaian. It means second born son. I am the second son of 6 boys. So when I talk about black men, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about these other 5 people that are really close to me that I grew up with. And you can see a picture there. Sadly, in this picture, we had got together in North Carolina because one of my cousins had been violently killed in the nightclub, and he was 26 years old. And another one of my cousins had been shot earlier that year, and we went up to New Jersey for that funeral. I am black, I live a black life in America, right? My dad was in the Air Force. He moved around quite a bit. I was born in Trenton, New Jersey. Then we went to Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas. I was telling the U of Arkansas people last night leaving the reception. Then they did Oklahoma for 3rd through 5th grade, and we retired. My dad retired in Dover, Delaware. So I know Air Force. My dad is a veteran. He gets veteran benefits. He did 20 years. But then after Delaware, I went down to Morehouse College for my undergrad. And here's another little known fact, and this impacts how we think about the numbers of today. Black boys are not supposed to be nerds, okay? I wish it changed, it still has not quite changed, right? The educational system says so, as do other black boys. Say, why are you studying, why are you trying to be a nerd? And really what you sometimes call it is, why are you trying to be white? My brothers used to say that to me, and we were all smart, and they would say that to me. But that's why there are these dismal numbers for African American men in professional fields. In Atlanta, 53% of black men are graduating high school. 53%. And then we talk about we want them to come to college and then grad school. 53%. Right? Then there's that, plus there's unfair sentencing laws, stop and frisk, broken window policies, and more that add to the systemic problem with this. But I was an individual, school was my jam, right? I love school, no one's gonna take school away from me. I love reading, I love everything about it. And so I was a valedictorian of my high school class, second one in my high school's history, and there were haters, and that's fine, they can be haters, because they're your motivators, as the old school lyric goes. But I went off to visit Morehouse College. Last school I visited, I had gotten a Johns Hopkins RPI because I was going to do biomedical engineering. And I walked on Morehouse's campus, and to see all of those black men dressed up, talking to each other, being respectful, going to school, it was something I had never seen before. For those that don't know, Morehouse is all black and it's all male, okay? Only school in the country like that. And I said, I have got to be here. Because in my AP class at my high school was the black guy and the black girl. There were other black people at the school, but in my class, the black guy, the black girl, right? But here, all these brothers are smart. And it also became quite humbling because I was not the smartest person in my classes. There are black men out there smarter than me, way smarter than me. Now, I was killing it in calculus, so that's why I'm here doing engineering to this day. But I learned a whole lot about Morehouse College because it's an all-black, all-male college, and what I learned there is that black men come in all shapes, sizes, intelligences, experiences, sexual orientations, gender identities, economic status, and family backgrounds. We are all of those things, despite what may be portrayed, right? But that was so freeing, right? So I get to walk around and not have to think about being a black man. I get to think about, oh, I want to do this science. Oh, I like that music. Oh, that person from what part of the country, let's talk. Oh, and it wasn't about being a black man. That's really how you can identify all the other parts of yourselves, and that's why I think college becomes quite powerful. So that was all black and all male, and then I did a study abroad there because Morehouse told us you can go and do anything and be anything and go anywhere. So I did a study abroad at King's College London. My scholarship paid for it, thankfully, because I wouldn't have been able to do that. And being outside of the United States for the first time with fall of '99, first time ever, and I went to study abroad, you really start to get a different impression of how we are inside of here. So I think my old student Philip told me yesterday, travel is the enemy of prejudice, did I say that right? Which I think is an interesting thing. But then I started grad school at Georgia Tech, second class of the BME class, and I still remember the demography of that class. There were 2 black students, 1 black man, 1 black female, 5 white men, 1 white woman, 1 Indian man, 1 Chinese man, 1 Chinese American woman, 1 Mexican woman, and 1 Korean woman. Why do I know that? Because race matters. Every black person walks into a room, shout out to my friend, and knows how many other black people are in the room. I'd imagine women do that when there are few women in the space. One probably also for safety even too, right? So the person who is the minority or the marginalized person knows it. So it's cute to say I don't see color, but unless you're colorblind, you do, right? I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be going through these slides. Morehouse College, and I want to talk about more. I said black men come in all different shapes and sizes. These are black men. These are black men. That's actually me and my crew from freshman year. See the skinny neck. These are black men. These are black men. These are Morehouse also. These are Morehouse men. These are black men. These are black men. These are all my Morehouse men at my friend Frank's wedding, a couple years ago. But this is me when I entered school, and I like showing this picture because it was summer '97, 20 years ago. This is my 20th year of my high school reunion. And out of the 4 that went to Morehouse after that pre-freshman program, there's 4 master's degrees and 2 doctorates. And in the picture that I show you down to the bottom, 2 of the other people are medical doctors. One is a brain microneurosurgeon. All of us are Morehouse alum. This is the face of what I think of when I think of black men. But the rest of my story has twists and turns because as someone who, my parents, my dad and my stepmother, they didn't finish college until they were in their 40s, right? My mother graduated when she was 30. So there's no guidance about how do you navigate college and success and how does it all work, which I think can be freeing, but it also means you're gonna hit some brick walls. So I went down to Morehouse, that's the chair of my department, J.K. Haynes. He told me to go see Bob Neer when I was graduating. And I was like, okay, I don't know him, but he looks great. That was when the web was getting started. So I looked at his webpage. He was doing tissue-engineered blood vessels. I thought it was amazing, right? Went over to talk to him. Well, he planned the meeting for a month in advance. And I was like, what? I can walk into my Morehouse professor's office and just talk to them. Month in advance, he kind of was busy. But anyway, after that first meeting, he offered me to work in his lab. I was happy to do that, and I thought I was not going to be paid. Then he gave me a check at the end of the month. It was amazing. I graduated from Morehouse, and of course, I went to the Georgia Tech Emory program. The faculty were phenomenal, the facilities. And I worked with that guy right there, Hanjung Jo. And I needed to do that. You have to think about who you are. At the time, my family wanted me to graduate as quickly as possible to get a job. Because if you're a minority, your family, and you're the smart one, the family is waiting on you to start making money so you can start lifting everybody up, right? Rising tide lifts all boats. So there was this thing of graduate school, I had to kind of I had to understand it for myself first, and then explain it to my family that it was like work, although it's called school. So they wouldn't ask me to come home every summer for 3 months, or to give me all this grief when I couldn't make it home, right? But I chose Han Jung Jo because Bob Nerum, he used to have this saying, and I wish he was here, but he's coming in late this evening, which was never let money be the reason you don't do an experiment, okay? Yeah, right. I'm a big nerd, and Dr. Joe, well-funded, even more well-funded these days than back then. But he always was like, well, that's a great idea. Sorry, I do his voice when I talk about it. Let's narrow it down, and if you could do just one experiment, what would it be? Dr. Joe, you got all this money, what are we doing one experiment for? But it was a great focus lesson, and I graduated in 5 years, so that was the goal. And Randy Ankeny is one of my first undergrads, and again, I was a NASA fellow, but at the end, I had to make a decision. I chose to stay in this field. Great field, nurture community, and I did a postdoc at MIT with Doug Laufenberg and Linda Griffith, where I learned a whole new set of things, right? But I had several mentors along the way, some that look like me, some that don't, and all that played different parts and different roles in my own development, which Georgia Tech, plug, I'm the charge of graduate recruiting and admissions. We have a very diverse department. That has always been a mission of Georgia Tech since I've been there, and I think it holds true and they spread it across all the departments. So we have diverse faculty. We are happy to have our new chair, Dr. Susan Margulies. I'm really excited about her and the things that she's already put into place. Plus, we have a diversity of research interests, so everyone should apply to Georgia Tech and come next fall, and I do mean that. But then I got back there and opened up my lab, the Platt Lab, Repair, Regeneration, and Remodeling, and really focusing on the proteolytic mechanisms Dr. Seton mentioned, but my diseases that I focus on are actually mostly health disparities. So sickle cell disease, I do HIV and cardiovascular disease. I'm happy to be part of this NSF center called EBICS, and then we do some predictive medicine for breast cancer. But I just want to do some quick plugs on research. I am way out of time. Okay, we do some quick plugs for research because I'm spending too much time here. I want people to know I do sickle cell disease. It's not cured. There's lots of things for bioengineers to get involved in. It's not cured. Life expectancy is 36, right? But there's 300,000 babies born each year with sickle cell disease around the globe. But up to 90% will die in their first 5 years of life. As a person, as a human being, that distresses me. And that is why we work on this problem. And what I've also learned is how to be a scientist activist. What does that mean? It means think globally, act locally, then act globally. So in the spirit of that, global health concerns are health disparities for underrepresented minorities in the United States. Sickle cell disease is a health disparity for black folks in the United States, but it's a global health problem. HIV, similar thing. So when you understand this importance of becoming a scientist activist, then you can actually communicate that to other people. And to my family, who is exposed to all of these diseases, that they need an interpreter for their doctor. And so we also interface with the community, so that brings in a great way to bring in undergraduates, grad students, to understand that what they do in their work and in the lab actually is applicable and real to a real population. We also participate at the Capitol when they lobby states' Congress people. We go and we participate, and there's a gravitas that being a Georgia Tech professor adds to them speaking to the Congress people. And then we talk about HIV, right? HIV, you can see this statistic here. It's an old one, but the numbers are still true, that it disproportionately affects African Americans in the United States. So you can see number 2 for new infections are black men who have sex with men. Number 1 are white men who have sex with men. Look at that number though, 13,000. And for black men who have sex with men, it's 10,000. Black men who have sex with men are 6% of the United States, or black men, period, are 6% of the United States population. But the numbers are almost equal as far as new infections. Look at that percentage. And then you can see where black women, heterosexual women, are the next highest risk group. And that's the leading killer of black women aged 25 to 34, is HIV. We have to be activists and educate our communities. And then you look at where it's blooming in the United States. Down there in the South, where Atlanta is, where Georgia is. These are things that we should address because there are problems in our community affecting the people that I work with. And it was amazing that actually took me to South Africa, which is a hotbed for HIV. And again, I'm a regular person. So when I go to a place and visit, I want to eat the food and I want to see the sights, and I get to do that. And science has taken me in all these amazing places that little Manu, when he started at Morehouse, had no idea was a possibility. I gotta get through my slide. Let me get through the rest. Okay, I'm gonna keep humping, sorry. And Ethiopia. Now, let's do this now thing. Now? I should start doing things now? I love this RuPaul quote, okay? What other people think about me is none of my business, okay? As professors, we guide our own path, right? But there are people who are whispering in our ears what we should or should not do, right? Oh, what do you think about me is none of my business. And that's where it gets to be a bit confusing for us, because I'd love to think that way, but peer review. But tenure review. People want to be happy. Okay, so how do we change that? So let's talk about this tenure situation, right? When you get started, it's this amorphous, crazy, oh my God, they're gonna kill me kind of thing, right? But it's interesting. I think for someone who's traditionally raised, or who was raised by academics, or who knew their whole life, I want to be a professor and have this long, targeted goal, who've read all the literature, know what it takes, I think it becomes a more different thing for them that they constantly focus on and think about it. But I believe in Murphy's Law. Something can go wrong, it will go wrong. I didn't have expectations like I'm gonna get it, right? But at the same time, I am a person of faith. So I do believe it's wrong not to count your blessings and to thank God for them. So the way I sum it all together is I think I'm blessed, but I ain't that special, right? And so when I think about tenure, when I started my postdoc at MIT, not to bring up bad business, but I started, and a month later, the James Shirley hunger strike tenure situation kicked off. Some of you know this situation. Because he did not get tenure. I was 1 month in when that email to all MIT hit my inbox. I'm this young black postdoc at MIT, like, what is going on? But I also knew that MIT had a tenure rate of 50% at the time, right? So why would anybody think they were getting tenure there anyway? Okay, sorry for anybody who's there. Why would you think you're getting it anyway? Georgia Tech has an 80% tenure rate, but Dr. Murphy, right? And I'm black. So I really didn't think it was gonna be any extra given or any fair. But here's the other kicker. My family has been through worse. So not getting tenure, okay. I get to make all this money for 5 years and then go find another job, right? So it allowed a certain bit of a freedom, right? But in that, and then also this happens 2 years after I get started, NIH puts out this amazing statistic. This is crazy, this is my lived experience. 50% of if you're African American, everything equal, publications, training, universities, institutions, you're still 50% as likely to get an NIH R01. So I was like, okay, well, this tenure thing, okay, fine. We're just gonna have fun while we're here. And that's what we begin to do. And I think about this Maya Angelou quote, if you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. And I had to quickly come to grips with the way that Dr. Neeram got tenure, an 80-plus-year-old white man, I'm not gonna get tenure that way. Now, he can guide me and mentor me and hope that works, but it's not gonna work that way for me. I can't get the same tenure the same way that a Korean immigrant came in and got tenure, right? That's not gonna be what works for me. So I've gotta figure out what's gonna work for me and do it. And again, for me, it was a freedom of, if I don't get it, I have to go find another job somewhere else. And so we just started running like crazy. And I'm really thankful that BMES was supportive. In 2012 in Atlanta, we brought those 120 high school students here. I'm glad there's more high school students here again. We'll do it again next year. Georgia Tech Emory helped me get an op-ed in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. We had a whole day. It was just an amazing time. And we had NPR come and interview the students. I'm not gonna play that audio right now, so I'm gonna skip that in the back. But in doing all of that, look at this, but it also wasn't just me. Georgia Tech undergrads put together science demos, Georgia Tech grad students, and we had students from other universities come that they wanted to participate and do their hands-on demos. So it does take a village, and I'm glad the village came out. And the question is, are we growing new future scientists and biomedical engineers? And again, I love this man, clearly you could imagine, but change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. Do it now, and start making that impact now. And that leads to us starting Project Engages. This has been such an amazing experience to do and a time commitment to run. And I'm thankful for Ms. Lakita Cervantes, who's in the audience, the program manager, who I started this with Bob Neeram. But these young kids are working 40 hours a week in labs during the summer, and then they're paid to do 12 to 16 hours a week during the school year, during the academic year. So we had to make arrangements with the universities for them to actually get out of school for half days, because the idea was instead of them working fast food or retail, they could come to work at Georgia Tech and get paid a salary. Because if you have people who are low economic, socioeconomic value, the kid's 16, the kid needs to work and bring in money. So we didn't want to select for students that were wealthy, because of course they're not gonna be fine, but I'll just say that, right? And this has been a lot of fun things. There's an actual oral presentation that we're giving on Friday, so please come and check it out. I'll talk more about the details there, because now we're finally doing the scholarship to get it out so others can emulate the practice. But this is the team. Myself, Bob Neeram, and Ms. Lakita Cervantes in the middle, keeping it cooking. What we started is we had teachers from the schools come and work in Georgia Tech labs. So again, not just me. My Georgia Tech professor colleagues are hosting these teachers and these high school students. And they helped us establish a curriculum for the boot camp. Then we started the training days the next year. We interviewed students, we brought them in. We had lab speed dating for the graduate student and postdoc mentors, so everyone felt ownership in helping decide what student that they wanted. And then they worked in labs, and we got them presenting and talking their science in front of groups as quickly as we could, because science is nothing if it's not about communication. And these are words that these students may not have even seen or done before. And then what gets me is it ends with these final summer presentations, and what has always been impactful is to bring the family, the parents, the community, everyone involved, and the Georgia Tech professors. And so if you could click on the speaker for me in the back.
Sure. Trina Latham is Jade's mom, and she's proud.
Because I knew that it was in her, but now she knows that.
As we wrap up, I ask the question every reporter saves until last.
or anything else you wanted to say?
Is there anything you wanted to see I didn't ask?
You know, I just want to say thank you.
Jade's answers to my questions often surprise me. Her mom's answer leaves me speechless.
Say thank you for the opportunity and thank you for seeing in my daughter what I've always seen in her. It's a great opportunity for her, and now people get to see what I've always known about my child, and I'm grateful for that.
Don't cry.
You did it.
Okay. So the audio's not so good. I'll tell you what she said. They interviewed the mother of one of the students, and she said, "I'm just so touched that my daughter, that my daughter sees what I've always seen in her, and that other people get to see it in her as well." And then the mom starts to cry, and the daughter's like, "Oh, Mom, don't cry." It's on NPR. You can check it out. It's actually such a beautiful thing. But this is the success we've been getting. Many of these students are first-generation college students, and look at the schools that we're getting these kids into. And what we had to quickly realize is not about just getting them into these schools. We now have to train them so they can graduate. So that's the next level. But we're impact beyond just the students. The Georgia Tech community is changing. And I tell you, for me, diversity work is not charity. So I think we have to get that out of our mind. I'm actually very selfish in running Project Engages. I do it because I want to see more of these brown faces around Georgia Tech's campus. And even in the first year, before they really felt comfortable, they would sit together in a pack in like a chair in the lobby, right? Because they were kind of nervous about integrating with everybody else. Now the kids are all over the place. So a stranger can walk in and be like, "Oh, there's just lots of just black researchers at Georgia Tech. I guess it's a thing that they do here," which it is a thing that we do here and a thing you can do at your schools. This young student here, I don't know if the audio's gonna play. This is Kendra Holland. He's actually in the audience.
We're in the Platt lab, aka the cathepsin lab. I research HIV, and with HIV, we deal with cathepsins. The cathepsin contribute to the negative effects that HIV have on people. The more cathepsins there are, the worse the disease is. When I was young, I liked to go outside a lot. And I also had the thing for school. I like school too. I like to be interactive when I get bored, but when everybody get bored, they get sleepy. So with science kept me up. We had to construct like a rock book of different types of rock in 6th grade. So we got a chance to go outside. So you don't get to go outside a lot at school, but we got to go outside, and then we had collect different rocks around the community. And once we got done, we came back to class and like glued all the rocks onto a paper to show the different types of rocks that we collected. Cancer runs in my family, so that kind of like pushed me towards science because my grandma, she died from cancer. Also, my cousin died from cancer, and my sister, she currently has cancer, so that plays a big role in why I want to do research. So first, you come into the lab. It's a big, wonderful lab. If you're blind, you can tell you're in the lab because of the smell.
And let me go back, don't get to that yet. And what I want to say about Kendra is Kendra's this amazing kid, and you could tell how genuine he is, how hardworking he is, and he could tell you about when he came in for that first interview, he was a wreck. He knows he was a wreck, and we love to tell that story. But what was there? Diamond in the rough. This kid was hungry. This kid was ready. He was willing to do whatever he could take. He saw this opportunity and said, this is an amazing opportunity. And that's the kind of kid that we all should be looking for. We look at these other metrics of GPAs and academic, but what about resilience, perseverance, creativity? How does that then help you advance your research program? And so when I think about a student like Kendra, I think about this again. I love pop culture a lot as well. I think about when Viola Davis, first black woman to win the Grammy for Best Actress in a drama series in 2016, was it, or 15? First ever. She gave this speech: the only thing that separates women of color from anyone else is opportunity. How many other students are out there that the reason they're not in this room right now is the opportunity to be in this room, right? And those are things we should all think about. And when we think about Viola, she's famous now. Viola's been acting for a good 25, 30 years, right? Viola, she used to be on Law and Order Special Victims Unit. She was always the defense attorney that was getting beat, the public defender, in terrible wigs. Then she was the mother in doubt, nominated for an Academy Award for 12 minutes of being on screen. 12 minutes, nominated for an Academy Award. Then, of course, we all remember The Help. She's in another bad wig, Oscar nominated. And she, of course, has her own show, How to Get Away with Murder, and this is when she actually won the Emmy for it. But then, of course, she played this role in Fences. And Viola's not afraid to get down and dirty, and we need to get down and dirty if we want to make a change. This is the role in Fences that finally she was a winner for her Academy Award, and the beauty and the glow of Viola Davis we all can appreciate. And that's what we want to see in some of these young students that we work with. So everyone, reach back. Pull farther back up in the pipeline. We all talk about this pipeline, go back farther. go to middle school, go to nursery schools, whatever you need to do to start chugging that pipeline. Don't scare them away from science. We get excitable about things, and I am still a giant. And then again, I love our Engages students. From Engages, we got a student got to go to the White House. I got to get a tour of the West Wing because of one of my high school students, right? That's amazing, and that's her mother and her postdoc mentor. And I always say, reach back and pull someone else up, but what's important, I think, to keep minority students engaged is you have to celebrate them being themselves. If they feel they have to change to fit in or be something else, you lose creativity, you lose what they can offer you, and you make them wonder if they belong in this environment. So I love this quote: diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance, and transformation is being allowed to dance to your own beat. And we let people dance, because that also means you should bring your whole self as well. And so my lab, we do events of all kinds. And what I love about my lab group, we're all different kinds of people in there, and we actually celebrate all the different kinds of things that people do. And I learn a lot, they learn a lot, and it makes us ask a number of different questions that I wouldn't get in a homogeneous situation. And I say, do that no matter where you go. You all recognize my good buddy Ed Bochway on the wall of China, right? The Great Wall. And everybody kept stopping us to ask for pictures because they thought we were basketball players. But we provided them a new perspective and said, no, we're scientists. And it's always interesting to me, whenever we fly around a lot, I get upgraded sometimes on flights, I always get asked, not always, I get asked quite a bit, oh, are you a football player? No, I do science, actually. Tall black men can do that. So change people's perspective. And so I like this also Maya Angelou quote: success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And again, this professor thing wasn't well laid out for me. It was a thing that kind of opened up. And I love this was, as when Dr. Sutton mentioned, this award, what kind of hit me greatly about this was what they put on the cover, the Professors of Purpose. I had never thought about myself that way, but it actually is just so appropriate. And so I love that title. All right, I'm still not done. And now, what to do? I want this one to work. Okay, can you play this video? What can we do, everyone?
Soaked in their urine, soaked in their semen, soaked in her blood, left to die. Can you see her? I want you to picture a little girl now imagine she's white.
So from Time to Kill, that's the John Grisham novel turned into the movie starring Matthew McConaughey and Samuel L. Jackson, where the young black girl was raped and gang raped by this group of truckers that then assaulted her and threw her body out, and she survived. And Matt McConaughey's in Mississippi talking about, I thought I could try to get a fair court case here in Mississippi, and he was not winning the case. And so in that last moment, he has everybody reimagine the crime, and then at the end you hear he said, imagine she's white. And it changes everybody's perspective. And this is a trick that I started to use, and it's actually got to me when I'm talking with Ted Conway, former NSF program director, now down at Florida Institute of Technology. As part of our NSF center, he started to push us to that we needed to start recruiting students with disabilities into our RU program. And I said to say, there's like, well, what if they can't do the projects? What if they don't get along with the other students? Should we give them an easier project? What if no professor wants those students? And like on the fifth question I was asking, I was like, this is what they used to say about black people. This is what they used to say about women. I have to stop asking these questions, and we have to start recruiting these students. And what Ted said is that student will find what they need to be successful in that lab, give them the opportunity. And so now when I hear people talking and they say things, I'm like, so they say all these crazy, I'm like, so imagine if you replace black with woman. How does that sound to you? Say that out loud to someone in a meeting. And if that sounds incorrect, then the thinking has to change, right? And I think that's an easy tip that most of us can use. So let's do this as an example. My department has been thinking about GREs, and if we're gonna continue taking those tests, because Emory has a new policy there. So the data shows it significantly disadvantages women, minority students from low socioeconomic backgrounds. So women score 80% lower on average in the physical sciences than do men. Let's flip it. Would you want to still accept this test if men scored 80% lower on average than women? African Americans scored 200 points below white people. White people scored 200 points below African Americans. We still gonna keep this test? Only 26% of women compared with 73% of men score above 700. Only 26% of men compared with 73% of women score above 700 on the GRE. Is everyone still for this exam? You could do that math. And if you see the numbers are even crazier, okay? For the sake of time, I'll keep going. And then I just want to make sure I touch on microaggressions. These are what we all do. I do them, you do them, none of us are immune from this. We do these things. But if we are aware that we do them, we can think about them before they start happening again, or we can understand why people may respond in a different way. And the big trick about microaggressions, there's small things people say that the person walking away can be like, I don't know if that happened, but something that didn't feel right. And then when it keeps happening, you're like, yeah, this is a thing. I've got no evidence, but I know this is a thing. Until finally then it boils over and there's a discussion, we'll say. But here's some realities in racial microaggressions people of color experience in the workplace. And again, as a man, I know I do this with women. As a person who's a domestic English speaker, I probably do it with people who are foreign language speakers. Like, we all have our privilege, and Naomi Kessler did a great talk about this a couple years ago when she was at this podium. But here are things that happen to us. You're expected to speak forward on behalf of people of color everywhere. I don't know them all, and I'm not related to all of them either, right? You're supposed to be the barometer of racism. Imagine what that is to ask this one person like this community in that group, hey, did what we all said, was that racist? What if the answer is yes? Should that person say yes? And then what happens to that person in this group, right? And I want to just give for time to the last one. You wonder how you can feel invisible and hypervisible at the same time. Nobody's talking to me, nobody's paying attention to me, but as soon as I move, they're like, hey, what are you doing? What's up, man? What? Or I'm not at the party or the function. Hey, Manu, we missed you the other day. I know, I should have showed up, but I couldn't because I didn't want to be there. And there's a danger about how we each appreciate the microaggression. So for the perpetrator, the one doing it, they might think that marginalized person is overreacting, right? And that's like, oh, you're just so touchy. I didn't even say anything bad. Like, it didn't affect your promotion or anything. And they want to blow it off. And that's why people decide not to bring up the microaggression, right? But what I will tell you is anybody, if you're ever the only person in a group, while my lived experience may be up for discussion, it is not up for debate. You cannot tell me what I was feeling in that moment or what I was experiencing. You cannot change that for me. You cannot convince me that I felt something different. And I cannot convince you, and I should not try, right? So, every person has a Bill of Rights, and I think this is something we can all take into consideration. I do this in my lab, I do assertiveness training with my lab, because they were just letting people run over them at one point. But this, my psychology sister-in-law, she helped me with this. Everyone has the right to be treated with respect. And respect is a universal thing, you know what it means. Everyone has the right to have and express your own feelings and opinions. You have that right, we're people. The right to be listened to and taken seriously. Not, yeah, whatever, he always says, what? The right to set your own priorities. And I tell this to my grad students, if I ask you to do something and you cannot do it for whatever thing you've got going on, tell me. And we will have to adjust it, because I have to respect you and your rights to have these priorities. Now, at the same time, you have to accept the consequences of your priorities being greater than mine, right? But you have that right. I can't be mad with you. And thus the right to say no without feeling guilty. You have the right to get what you pay for. You have the right to make mistakes. And I think underrepresented communities always feel like if I make a mistake, it's over. I cannot tell people I'm making mistakes. I don't want to ask for help because I'll know that I don't know what's happening, and this is detrimental. We all have the right to make mistakes. And you have the right to choose not to assert yourself if you don't feel safe in a situation. But if we all kind of go around and think about other people have these rights, then it's something that I think we can all get better with. And so just on the now, be an ally, use your power for good. I thanked these two at the beginning. But I also want people to think about, imagine if Bob Nerum started Project Engages 20 years ago when he was Bob MF and Nerum, right? Where would this room be today if he started it 20 years ago? Right? I'm glad he started it now, and he needed a partner, right? And everyone knows this quote, that they came for the Jews, I did not speak out, but when they came for me, there was no one left to speak for me. This is why allyship is so important. We'll just whittle away, and we're going to get around to everyone, ultimately. So I want to show this. I think this is a fairly agreeable statement in the room, right? Puerto Rican lives matter. This is happening right now. This is terrible. Puerto Ricans are Americans. I love Puerto Rico. And a lot of Puerto Ricans are not here because of this thing's happening at their houses, right? And we all know Puerto Ricans. Korean lives matter. This is a thing that's happening in the world right now, right? About the risk of all these lives happening over in Korea. They matter. Black lives matter. If the other two matter, these can matter. If the other two are not inflammatory, this should not be inflammatory. These lives matter. Gay lives, they matter, right? Black gay lives, they matter. Trans lives matter. Black trans lives matter. This is the group that's the most killed, right? All of these things matter. And we're engineers. We all took set theory or discrete math, whatever they called it back in your day. So if you do the set theory, if you want to say all lives matter, for all lives matter to be true, each of those individual subgroups must also be true. So if you want to say all lives matter, black lives must matter, Korean lives must matter, Puerto Rican lives must matter, gay lives must matter. So as engineers, spread that word. It's a mathematical proof, right? So we don't have to fight about it. And we are the society that can make these changes. That's why I'm happy to be a part of this. Look at us at BMES. We are 50% women at the undergrad and graduate level in engineering, where you have departments that are 8 or 10%. We are that department that is diversified at the gender level. Now, I say undergrad and grad because there's plenty of spaces that we still have work to do, right? We have our society said, let's have a women's luncheon at our annual meeting, right? So they could get together and have some professional development and things that help them. We have started a Celebration of Minorities luncheon. I was thankful that Sangeeta Bhatia and Gilda Berabino asked me to be the lead on that for the first 5 years. And then 2 years ago, we started the LGBT Dessert Social, and I was glad to be able to talk at that one last year. We are the society making those changes. So we are the ones should be the leaders. And look at what we've done already. I have been just blown away this year at all the numbers of new women department chairs. Now, something happened where Susan's picture is bigger than I don't know, I think they must have done that in the back. I don't know how that worked out. and there's more women department chairs than this. I am empowered by this. I think this is amazing. We are the society that can do all these changes, and I think it's on all of us to go out and do that. And so that's the charge, 50th year, Atlanta. What are we gonna do? Let's do it, racial, ethnic, ability, diversity, and let's set the standard for other professions and disciplines to follow. We can do that. And please, we can't forget about intersectionality, because there's a black woman, there's a black gay woman with a disability there's all of that as well, okay? And they don't just count once. So thank you for listening. I want to thank, of course, my lab group. They've been fantastic, funding that helps me do all the other things, and again, the professional society, and I probably went over time, but thank you for allowing me that space. Crazy people, crazy people. Yeah. Thank you so much. I know, I'm way over time, so I'm sorry.
No, you're not. You're not at all.
Oh, okay.
This is so important. And so, do you want to take questions?
Sure, yeah. Oh, you all.
All right. Well, what we'll do now is show our thanks to Dr. Platt for sharing his experience and really energizing and empowering us to make change in this coming year. And what we can do now, we have the Celebration of Minorities luncheon next. We'd be happy to entertain a few questions for Dr. Platt or a few comments.
Microphones placed throughout the hall.
No. Cool. Oh.
I think we're seeing.
Oh, she got it.
Hello? Dr. Platt, I actually saw you last year at the LGBT social, and I want to say thank you. I am an out lesbian engineer, and you inspired me to get more involved with my students and really make a change on campus to get the conversation going.
Good.
And so I think of you and what you say and the context of your speeches, they really inspire me, and thanks.
Thank
That's
you.
all I gotta say.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. That's good. That's good.
Hi, Manu. Randolph Ashton.
Hey, I see you back there.
I thought that was a phenomenal presentation. I wonder if you could speak to some of the social groups and organizations that you partner with in order to help engage be so successful. I know there's a lot of different groups out there, maybe people who are interested in doing these type of programs in their own city can link up with the local chapters of those groups.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so of course, NSBE is a great organization. I think Dr. Sutton mentioned that in the opening. I've done some partnering with NSBE. NSBE has the pre-high school chapter, plus the undergrad chapter and the graduate chapters. It's mostly a professional organization, but they are now embracing graduate life. And then, of course, there's SHEP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, that are also looking at ways that they can include the academic side into their community. But some of the other things to think about really are just groundswell calling people and going over to a high school and saying, hey, I want to come and do this thing with your students. Are you okay with us doing that? And so I do want to mention in the beginning of the Getting Engaged off the ground, which we'll talk about again in my talk tomorrow, is it was establishing relations with the high school by just us giving our time and going over there, and me taking my grad students, particularly my black female and black male grad students over there, and kind of just engaging with them to show that we were willing to sacrifice time to be with them, that then they could sacrifice administrative time to help us get things off the ground. So a lot of grassroots just going over there, being that one person. Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Platt?
Yes.
Over here.
Oh.
This side.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Phenomenal talk. One of the things that stood out to me is just how much of a free spirit you are up there. And you're certainly dancing to your own beat, as you indicated there. Was there a click moment in your development that allowed you to sort of do that? Was it your undergraduate experience? And were you able to dance to your own beat right away as a graduate student, or is that something you had to relearn?
Ooh, that's a good one. I have always been me, even when I have tried to not be me in certain spaces because I felt like it might be too much. And I think that's been the part. So I love the Tim Cook quote about bring your whole self to work. The more you try to repress parts of yourself and who you are, like, it just doesn't work out, right? And so for me, it probably, again, at Morehouse, it clicked. I didn't have to always have this first black man thing. It was, what are the other parts of me that are now able to shine, that I can really think about, because I don't have to impress these black men, because there's so many types of us. Versus in the rest of the world, they think I'm supposed to be like this, so let me maybe try to be like this or fight stereotypes. And then once I didn't have to fight stereotypes, I could just find out what was underneath all this, right? And so that's why I try to encourage that with my lab students, especially because they're young and early, right? So what can they do now that makes things more exciting for them and bring others in? Because again, if you have to conform, then you feel like that space is not for you. So, and that's why, again, going back to Georgia Tech was amazing for me. They value diversity, like that's a thing. So I didn't have to play a different game to be there. And so I think it's also finding a space that fits. We could talk more about that because I have to think a little bit more about the epiphanic moment too. I'm gonna keep my hands down instead of doing epiphanic, see? Yes, or I don't know who's.
I'll go next.
Anzola.
Hey, Manu.
Hey, Anzola.
I'm very proud of you for bringing up a lot of those topics in this audience. I think that was very inspiring and powerful. One of the issues that I'm interested in finding out, and since you've, develop a lot of these programs to help minorities, especially in engineering, is, there is this big increase in these types of programs, which is wonderful, especially at the earlier stages. But unfortunately, once you reach that stage, everybody eventually, gets a PhD or what have you, and they have to transition into these professional positions. According to NSF, that reports, they always have these diversity reports. Black women, for example, represent only 0.1% of engineers in universities and also in industry. So there's this big dam there, that's preventing the water from flowing once all of those girls from high school, college, reach that point where they have to transition into, the professoriate or, scientists in industry. So where are the programs that are, supporting those minorities once they reach those stages?
No, this is a very important question, Zola, because if you look at the numbers even, black women are outnumbering black men at the graduate or the undergraduate, graduate, all of the educational levels, and by 4 to 1 almost, right? And then we lose them at the professor level.
Yeah, what's happened?
Right, and so it's interesting, as I was going through those time periods myself, I was talking to my black women friends who were in the space. Different things happen, right? So there's family things that happen, but there's also what I've heard my women specifically say this is they just were tired of fighting, right? And they were fighting a fight that I didn't understand because I'm not a black woman, right? And I just had to believe them when they were telling what their fights were. So I love when people now are having different conversations, and Rashid Bashir is one of them, which I think he's great, is think about how do we have to change the system so that women are supported at all of these levels. So that's the first part about life choices, and I know that women of color, family is critically important for a number of reasons, right? Then I think the other side is there are professional development programs at the early faculty and mid-faculty levels. I mean, Dr. Barabino has been phenomenal in keeping her minority faculty development workshop going. And I learned a lot when I was going to there because it opens your eyes to things you don't know are coming, right? But also, American Heart Association has a minority mentoring network. Princess and I were part of that. And so I think where biomedical engineering, it becomes interesting and different. I think the society doesn't have something. But we then are in part of all of these other professional societies, and maybe it should be a thought that the society thinks about how they could actually nurture their own talent instead of us going out with the others, if there are things that have become unique to BME. So that's a longer discussion, and recently I've been having that fight because I've graduated now 2 black women. I got 2 more in my lab, and I don't want them to leave the academy. But role models, they need to be there. But there's 2 down front for those that are looking.
And I hope that the Biomedical Engineering Society will take a leading role in that because...
Or you can start it. You can start it also.
I stopped coming to this, actually, this society. The last time I was here was in 2006. Because of this type of issue. I came back to see if, if change over the 10 years.
So let's chat at the lunch then. We can talk about ideas.
Okay.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go next.
What I think we'll do, because we really don't want to cut off the dialogue, but we also don't want to cut into the next event, which is 11:45, the Minorities Luncheon. Yeah, if I could ask the people who are now patiently waiting at the microphone to come up to the front, we can continue the dialogue up here, and as long as Dr. Platt has energy, which I think he does. So,
Thanks again, everybody.
Please let's thank him one more time.
So good. Thank you so much. And I'll see you soon. This is good. Thank you.
We have so much to talk about.
Okay.
Bye.